Doctor, look.
Stand aside, nurse. I'm Dr. Homebrew.
Stand clear.
Hey, it's Dr. Homebrew, everybody. We are back. Thank you very much for tuning into this lovely, lovely edition of us judging homebrews. Well, me drinking homebrews and going, yep, I totally get that taste. And then, Brian and Brian actually, judging homebrews. But, whatever, man. That's the price I pay for being really cool. You know what I mean? Is I just get to drink everybody's homebrew. I'm JP, of course. And then with me, as always, are Brian and Brian. And then apparently we have a third Brian on. So we're back to the Council of Brians. And I can't wait for Brian Shaw to make like 10 jokes about it that each take 4 minutes long.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, JP. I'm disappointed myself because we were going to have a show with 4 Brians, and I'm not sure that the internet or Earth or anybody could have withstood that. So
No.
we were only going to have a show with 3 Brians.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, that's all right. Brian Mills, welcome, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah, Brian's a repeat offender, too.
That's right. That's right. I think he's...
I keep coming back for more punishment.
Yeah, well, someone has to, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. Before we get to your beer, though, I do want to thank our fine sponsor, 5 Star Chemicals. You can go to 5starchemicals.com right now and learn all about the lovely people and the chemicals that they push onto you. They are chemical pushers. I don't know if they're necessarily considered drug pushers, but I don't know, maybe. I mean, Colorado, you never know anymore. But 5 Star Chemicals, clean and sanitize. We all know that's the foundation for making good beer. I mean, you could say, "Oh yeah, fermentation." And it's nothing supersedes cleanliness and sanitary work conditions for anything really. But if you have a dirty fermenter or a dirty gunk in your ball valve or your butterfly valve or whatever, that's gonna interfere with your fermentation. If your fermentation's perfect, if your mash temps are perfect, but you have mung in your hole, you know what I mean? For lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, you don't want that.
It's going to suck,
PBW
dude.
can take care of that for you in a jiffy.
You spend hours at the homebrew shop, like selecting the perfect ingredients for your beer, piecing the recipe together, working on perfect water chemistry, and then you got mung in your hole.
You don't need mung in your hole, man. Actually, I just used PBW in a brewing application, in a brewing setting for like the first time in like 3 years. Well, maybe more like 2, because I did have like the Pico brew. But I have the Brewzilla from More Beer. Yeah, and I fired that thing up just to do a test batch all the way through. And geez Louise, that thing is quiet. You'll never know it's on, and it goes to temp, man. I didn't time it, but it took, I would guess, under an hour to get from like 64 to like 150.
Is that 120 volt or is it 220?
Yeah. No, 120.
Or 240.
110. Yeah, 110, 220. Yeah. It was 110. It has 2 elements, so it's like 1500 watt. And just put on both elements, hit that fucking pump, which you can barely hear anyways. And so anyway, I ran through all that and cleaned all the machining oils and stuff like you're supposed to really do. But you can smell it like through the PBW coming up, off the top. It was pretty nice.
Did you get your PG&E bill yet? Or you see the spike on the day, or it goes, whoa,
well,
we tier 4.
We just got a hot tub, bro. We were tier 4 fucking last month because our hot tub is a whole thing. Like it gets windy, and I didn't have the clips installed to keep the lid down. So it was like 2 days where like the lid had blown open, and so it's probably just running fucking 24 hours. It sucked. Anyway, we got thoroughly boned on our PG&E bill the last 2 months, as a matter of fact. And so
Christmas lights too.
Yeah. First world problems here.
I know it really is, dude. I feel terrible about it because it's like, oh my God, but still. I don't know, whatever, man. Hey, we saved for it, so we can do it. Anyway, PBW Star San, that's the combo, the winning combo, especially for me, for the beer I'm going to brew. I'm hoping it's probably not going to be this weekend. Maybe next week it'll be a mild ale with Kveik yeast.
Why?
I don't know. Why not?
That's a good point.
Yeah, I was
You're
going
a home brewer. You're going to experiment.
Look, I'm a home brewer. I'm going to totally fuck shit up if I want to. And that's really how we do the things. Yeah. I was texting Nate Smith and I'm like, hey, I'm going to do we're texting about milds because we do that from time to time. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what do you think about with a Kveik yeast? He goes, yeah, that could be good. I'm like, all right, fuck it.
You're mild bros.
We are mild bros, mildly mild bros. All right, Brian Mills, what beer did you send us, dude?
I sent you a pale ale.
Oh, see, this is what I'm talking about.
It was not brewed with Kveik yeast.
Oh, thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you for that. I feel like that is appropriate. First pale ale, I'm going to guess not. I'm just going to assume no.
I've done a couple of them. First one with this particular hop.
Okay. We probably shouldn't. Well, I don't know. Judges, do you want to know now?
Later.
Tell us later. Okay.
Well, we get the recipe. I'll tell you. That was the main reason I wanted the feedback.
Okay. For this, so we're checking out flavors. I do like to know sometimes what we're tasting the beer for. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's you just want opinion, or do you want recipe, or if you taste some mung in your hole.
If it's some kind of ditch hops that he found somewhere of unknown variety that just might be poisonous, might not, who knows?
Might not. Just so you know, my tasting glass is my Olympia beer goblet because I read today that they're not going to make Olympia anymore, and that makes me sad for some reason. So there you go. Cheers to Olympia. All right, Brian Shar, why don't you go first?
Right. Ooh, all right.
Just because you're looking professional.
I'm feeling professional there, JP.
Well, there you go.
Thank you for sharing this American Pale Ale with us. Bottle inspection was fine. I opened it up and there was very little hiss. So I'll be curious what Brian's experience was with that. But usually you open up an American Pale Ale and it's not like you're opening a triple or something that's got, 4 volumes of CO2, but it's a pretty authoritative hiss. And this had very little. Aroma started off with kind of a low 2-row malt and low citrusy hop aroma. No off aromas or diacetyl. I got sort of a low aroma overall. And after it's warmed up, this is the sample, the same beer that I opened up about an hour 15 ago to judge, and maybe actually more like an hour and a half at this point. And it's warmed up, and the aroma overall has gotten a little bigger. I wouldn't call it low. I'd call it more medium-low at this point, but still a little lower hop character than I would expect for an American Pale. So you have it 6 out of 12 for aroma. Appearance, 2 out of 3. Golden color, crystal clear, that's great. Minimal head that is very persistent. If you can see, that little tiny bit of head is just around the very edge of the glass. And I did re-pour. That's not from an hour and a half ago. That's from re-pouring some additional beer about the beginning of the show. But that was 2 out of 3. Flavor. Initially, the flavor I thought was a very pleasant floral citrus hop flavor character. Malt comes in at a medium level. Malt comes up to match that mid-palate along with kind of medium bitterness to balance. Both, again, kind of a medium level. Finish is short and balanced. I like the hop choices, whatever. I'll be curious what you used because they really played well together and I thought were very tasty. But again, it was just kind of not... this is not an IPA, but I think I wanted a little more hop flavor and maybe a little bit more hop character out of the flavor. So I gave this 11 out of 20. Mouthfeel, 3 out of 5. Very low carbonation, to me almost watery. Slight warming, neither creamy nor astringent. And overall, 5 out of 10 for a total score of 27, which is good. And I think that fundamentally, I think this is probably a really good beer, and I may have just gotten a bottle that maybe had some capping issues or maybe wasn't as carbonated. Because the fundamental issue of this beer to me is the carbonation, because the extremely low carbonation really, I think, affects the aroma. The aroma probably would be perfect if it had that carbon dioxide kind of lifting the aroma out of the beer into the glass where it was more noticeable. It kind of definitely affects the body, not having the carbonation at a level where it should be. And it also affects the flavor by having kind of the lack of the carbonic bite and having that prickliness kind of lift some things off your tongue and make it a little more lively. I think the choices, even before you mentioned hops, I noticed I really liked the hop flavor. I thought that whatever hop choice or combination of hops you used was real good. There's no off flavors. I mean, the technique that I'm not really getting anything objectionable about this at all. It's just, to me, the root cause of why this is not, a 37 instead of a 27 is carbonation, and that may be a singular issue with the bottle that I had. So, thank you for sharing, and I'm curious about Brian Cooper's experience.
Here we go. I'm going to open one right now in front of my little microphone here, and I didn't hear anything.
Yeah,
this one's about as low as the one I had last night. So I had the benefit of having 2 bottles. So we'll go with this, and I'll pour it straight down the glass as you do when you're judging. It does throw up there's carbonation in it. Oh wow, this glass is not beer clean, is it?
Oh wow. Come on, Cooper. And it's a mason jar, for God's sakes.
You call yourself a doctor of homebrew? You don't scrub in with your glassware before the show?
Yeah, this came straight out of the dishwasher. It's just, it smells like dishwasher detergent. And it's a little chunky in there,
kind of Palmolive-y?
Yeah, Palmolive-y. No. I do agree with a lot of what Brian said there. Did start with a low hiss there. In the nose, comes through with a light resiny and citrusy hop at first. I thought I was grasping at something in there. I thought maybe I got a little faint bubblegum ester just immediately after pouring it, and it went into hiding soon after that. But I couldn't really find it again, or else I was just trying to imagine what it might have been, and that's something else. But there's an interesting ester in there, and I got a little interesting ester character in the flavor too. But it wasn't super unusual. Like, whoa, that's super weird. It kind of plays with it. And it pops through a little more than it would if the hops were a little more in the forefront.
Yeah, Brian, not to interrupt you, but I had the same thought. And I thought just a very fleeting, when I poured it, from the bottle I'd opened like an hour and a half ago, maybe 20 minutes back, I got just a fleeting, almost like a fusel. But then I didn't anymore. And I thought, I'm not going to even bring it up because it's probably just an anomaly of whatever I happen to be smelling right then, but we both experienced that, and I'm not sure what it was.
Yeah, there was something that just zinged by, and I'm like, okay, did I get? I might not have gotten it in time, but it was bubblegum.
Space junk of the beer world.
Yeah, it cruised through our solar system at an immense speed from another solar system and an alien world somewhere, probably not even our galaxy. Anyway, there's kind of bready malt underneath the hop, or kind of even with the hops almost, but it's faintly biscuity and caramelly, a little bit of caramel. Otherwise, just fairly unassuming. I kind of agree that the beer is a little underwhelming in the nose. The hop smell that is there is nice, and it is a good blend, like Brian said. But and there's no DMS or diacetyl. It seems clean. It's just okay. Does that scream American Pale Ale? I mean, yeah, I don't want an IPA either, but maybe a little more hop for sure. The color is nice. It's kind of a rich medium golden color with good clarity, a low whitish head that fades fairly soon after pouring. This one's actually sticking around a little better. Maybe it's my glass, the enhancing Palmolive effect.
Yep.
Mostly finer bubbles with wisps of foam covering the beer after a while. And in the flavor, there's a low malt with the bread and hints of biscuit. I thought I got like a medium low apricot-like ester. You know what I'm getting though, as I retaste it, I'm getting kind of a wordy taste to it. And I think it's just because the carbonation is so low that just the wordiness of the malt comes through. And there's not much else for it to hide behind. So I don't get the feeling that it's under attenuated. I'd say the finish is semi-dry, but it's not bone dry. It's not sweet or cloying by any stretch of the imagination. The bitterness is quite faint as well, and that's another thing that could be adjusted here to, your bitterness should be at least towards medium here, and it's just kind of really faint. And again, the hoppiness in general is just too low overall for the style, both the flavor and the bittering. And some people may prefer a pale ale that's a lot less hopped than some of the modern interpretations of it. But even in the 90s, it's, Go ahead, JP.
I was raising my hand saying I prefer that. Yeah.
Okay. But this takes it a step lower. Balance just slightly actually to the malt on this, I would say. And the fermentation, again, fairly clean. No major off flavors here. So, pretty decent. I gave it 11 out of 20 on the flavor. Mouthfeel wise, medium light bodied with medium low CO2. Just too low for the style. There's no warmth or astringency or any kind of bite here. Just dulled overall with a little bit of spritziness. There's no real hop phenols here to give a little bite. It's still smooth. It's not creamy or slick or anything else weird. It's just kind of towards where it should be. 3 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Overall, it's a pleasant beer. It goes down fairly smoothly. It's an easy drinker. I didn't have any problem getting it down. Seems cleanly brewed. Just misses the mark on the hoppiness and the bitterness and the CO2. That should be more prominent. That's going to, the CO2 affects everything. It's going to push all of those flavors up and push the hop that's obviously in there out into your nose a little better. So, but yeah, the bitterness does need to come up. CO2 needs to come up, and probably the aroma hops a little bit too. Something to counterbalance that malt. So yeah, late hops, dry hops if you used them. It's well fermented, lacking any serious flaws. I landed on a 30. I was like, well, is it a 29? Is it 30? So I was like, okay, I'll give it a 29 and a half. I gave it a 30, but then I wrote 29 and a half question mark. I'm like, it's like right between, that would put it right between good and very good. So, it's in that territory. It is fairly good.
So is that's kind of good better than good? Or pretty good,
yeah. Kind of good, yeah.
Pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Everyone's scale.
I circled I circled both of them. It's right in between.
Everyone's scale is different. Before I start asking you questions, third Brian. Yeah, I mean, I agree with the other Brians for sure. I get a little scorched wort. I get a little I don't want to say burny, but a little burn, just a little bit. And maybe that's a malt choice with the hops. I don't know. But I echo what everybody else is saying. It is a little too thin for pale ale. It tastes more like a slightly hoppy ESB.
Did you say you're getting burny in this beer?
I'm getting burnt. I wish. My king, my liege. Give me health care.
Source of the hops.
So that's
is he wearing mittens?
That's what I think Vermont is. That's my opinion about what's going on. It's a little thin. It does need a little more hop character. The malt, it needs a little more body, but there is some sort of burnt scorched wort thing going on. But before all that, what do you guys think about the hops? Because that's what was the main reason Brian sent the beer in. What about hop flavor, hop aroma? Does that work with a beer like this?
I think the hop flavor does. I think that the aroma would. And to the extent that I got some, it did. I think if there was some more CO2 kind of lifting that out, it would definitely work.
I'm interested to see what the hop is, because I do get almost like a fruity tropical thing. Yeah. Is that like a new school hop? And maybe that doesn't work with a crystal malty pale ale.
I was getting odd fruitiness, the bubble gum is another ester. There was something
that could be
in there.
That could be
apricot in the flavor a little bit, or just something stone fruit, or maybe a little tropical. You might be right.
Yeah. Well, you see,
it's going to be like cluster and galena.
Brian, when you were saying bubble gum, to me that could be fruitier, brighter, Hubba Bubba, but on a papaya level. You know what I mean? I could see some crossover where you might get that. Mills, why don't you go ahead and explain yourself?
You put fruit stripe gum in the beer, I think.
That is what it is.
I dry striped it. Go ahead, man.
So, as simply as I can put it, it's the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale recipe. Rather than Crystal 60, I had a Cara Munich available, so like that was a substitution. And it is whole leaf Cascade, but they're grown in my backyard. So what you're tasting is essentially the Pennsylvania version of Cascade hops. And
Cool.
I totally agree that like it is a different beer coming out of the keg. When I bottled a bunch of these for a work virtual happy hour, and that was about a month and a half ago. And I popped one open here this evening, and I too got the very little hiss coming out of it, and I was like, that's not good. it is a better beer coming out of the keg with more carbonation.
There may be a little oxidation going on here too. I didn't mention it. It's not dirty, but it's coming up on a little papery.
Yeah, and that's good on you growing your own hops. You know, it's the curse. Kegging is great, and not having to bottle is great. The bane of kegging is when you go to bottle, and you know I've been there. I'm sure JP and Cooper have been there too. You have a great beer, you bottle it off the tap, and you open it up later. It's like, oh man, there's like half the carbonation I want to have in there, a quarter of the carbonation I wanted.
Yeah, and when I first did these, so we did our virtual happy hour with work the week between Christmas and New Year's, and it was a pretty quick bottling job for about 2 cases. So I knew I wasn't taking the utmost care with it, but then I had about half a case left over, and I was like, well, what do I do with all these bottles now? So you guys were the beneficiary.
So your bottling for your coworker is not a competition where you actually care about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I bottled them, and 2 days later we were drinking them, and I knew that was what was going to happen. So, you know, there wasn't as much risk there. I mean, they were clean, they were sanitized, but like I probably would have taken a little bit more care if I knew they were going to be lasting longer.
Traveling across the country and picked apart by picky ass bastards. Yeah.
Yeah.
And me.
Fucking Brian's.
Yeah, that's right.
Giving your beer to Brian's, you're taking your chances.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. The hops quality is actually pretty good in the nose, and I'd like more of it. And the CO2 probably did help, like you said, but
yeah,
what's there is good. Yeah.
I had, out of what I got out of the backyard, I think this year, this past fall, was about 60 some ounces dried. So
wow. Nice.
I mean, I had plenty. I did send them off for testing, so I knew the alpha acid, and that helped going into it. And I just had to make a little bit of adjustments to the recipe that Sierra Nevada has on their website.
Yeah. Where did your alphas land at?
7%.
Okay. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I mean, it's in the range.
Yeah.
So.
Very good.
Yeah, it was interesting to, like, I did this with my homebrew club, Lebanon Area Fermenters.
Nice.
So we did our last 2 homebrew club meetings ago, or we did our virtual club meeting. Before that, we did a socially distanced beer exchange where we all bottled our beers. So I took this one and, you know, bottled them for all the guys who were participating and gave them a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And we sat there in our virtual meeting, just going back and forth between the two. It was fun just to taste the difference between, you know, that brewed with, you know, Northwest Cascade versus our Pennsylvania Cascades.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool. And, you know, you mentioned the Sierra Nevada recipe, and just having had a sip again just now, you can definitely taste the Cara Munich.
Yeah. Yeah. And I when I sent this in, I considered having you judge it as a clone beer, but I knew there was enough difference that I
wouldn't have made it.
I really just wanted the feedback on the hops.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You're in the neighborhood, and I can imagine tasting it fresh off the keg. It's probably a lot closer yet. So,
yeah,
you know, pretty good job getting into the neighborhood with the hops that you have, and the you know, having to substitute a little bit. It's right there. You know, seems like strength wise, and yeah, definitely a fresh Sierra Nevada is going to have a lot more bitterness, and yeah.
That with the more carbonation, like you were saying, the bitterness does stand out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 7% alpha is pretty good for homegrown hops, and good on you for getting that analyzed, because that's always kind of the difficulty of using homegrown hops for bittering is unless you get them tested, you have no idea
you don't know what you're doing.
The alphas are.
Right.
And it's interesting, too, hops are a lot like wine grapes in a lot of ways, because where you grow them does have a huge effect on their flavor. I mean, isn't Mandarina Bavaria essentially Cascade grown in Germany?
Something like that.
I don't know enough.
I remember hearing a story of Cascade being shipped overseas somewhere, and it was so different that they couldn't even call it Cascade anymore.
And Argentina, like I've had some beer
show
made with, maybe it was one of those Sierra Nevada Southern Hemisphere beers they make every now and then. But I've had some sort of beer in the past with Cascades grown in Argentina. It's a very different flavor, very different aroma than Cascade grown in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, up there.
Yeah.
The Mandarina Bavaria is a daughter of Cascade, along with Hallertau Blanc.
Okay, daughter of Cascade.
Helen, at least in 2012. So it's not a straight transplant, but I'm sure they do taste way different if you grow them in Germany.
Oh yeah, for sure, totally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if that's it, Brian, we'll let you go.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
I appreciate it.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah. Thanks for sending that in.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, man. Take it easy.
See ya.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get Justin, our next guest, on, and he has a Black IPA. So we're going to do that. We're going to come back where we speak with Justin, drinking some Black IPA, which I feel like it's been a hot minute. Haven't had a Black IPA in a long time. So
they're coming back
that'll
around,
be fun.
yeah.
Are they really? Damn.
Yeah.
I will never call it a Cascadian Dark Ale. Don't miss me with those fucking DMs if anybody gets all pissy about it. I don't care. It's a Black IPA. Hang on, everybody. It's Dr. Homebrew. We're going to be right back.
Dr. Homebrew, please report to the ER for code blue. Dr. Homebrew to the ER, please. Oh, and your tea time has been moved to 2:30.
Now back to Dr. Homebrew.
Thanks for hanging on, everybody. This is Dr. Homebrew. We are back with Justin, who sent in a Black IPA. Justin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys.
Man. Yeah,
He
for
didn't
sure.
just send in a Black IPA. He is local. He hand delivered.
Hand delivered. Nice. I appreciate that. Is this the first Black IPA you've ever done?
It is my very first Black IPA, yes.
Oh, man.
It was brewed out of necessity.
Why? Because you just had like a black malt hanging around and you needed to use it? Because it's the only thing I can think of.
I had a hankering for 21st Amendment Black in Back.
Oh.
I couldn't find it. It was not in the shops anywhere.
It's Back in Black. I feel like Black in Back is a different beer.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
That's all right. Sorry, I just wanted to make the joke, really. Okay, well, that's cool, man. I'll have to tell Sully all about that, unless he's probably listening. He knows we're talking about him, unfortunately, all the time. Well, Brian Cooper, there you go. Snap that.
I'm going to pour it. Yeah, a light little hiss there. All right. Black IPA. It's been a hot minute since I've had one of these, so it's kind of nice to come back to it. It's in the nose, it's got a pleasant, moderate, resiny hop character up front with some citrusy notes as well. Low dark malt character. It doesn't smell burnt or too rich in the nose. Just medium low, generally fruity esters. Nothing's poking out too weird there. I'm not getting any real carameliness or anything underneath just the base malt and the dark malt, or any other real standout malt character. So it's pretty clean. The hops shine over that, little bit of dark malt character. That's nice. Clean beer, no DMS, diacetyl, anything like that. And it smells, clean, dry. It doesn't smell like it's going to be a sweet beer to me. It smells kind of like, okay, this is probably a dry, but sometimes you get to the flavor and it'll change around on you. So appearance wise, it's a rich, dark brown, almost black colored beer. If you look at the corners of the glass, you can see some mahogany, in there, and there's some kind of ruby highlights in the corners. It's a good dark brown, and that's a nice place to be for this beer. It had a kind of a creamy head, mostly finer bubbles. Seems like good clarity as well. Got kind of a little glow when you look at the edges, and so that seems fine. Modestly good retention. It didn't stick around forever, but I forgave it for that. Looks like the beer should look for the most part. 3 out of 3 for appearance. Medium high in the flavor, citrusy and resiny hops up front again at a nice level. You're getting a little esteriness to it there too with that, and that plays with the estery fermentation byproducts play nicely with a little bit of fruity hop flavors. It's got a medium low dark malt character, just a bit more prominent here than in the nose, possibly shining through a little more due to the very dry finish. It's low smooth alcohol, seems cleanly fermented. And the malt did have just a hint of some coffee and chocolate, nothing too biting or harsh, but it is a bit on the acidic side, so that pops a little bit, but not offensive. It's clean and it works with the beer. But I do get a little bit of dark roast coffee in the aftertaste as well, so not just a dark malt there, but good flavor. Mouthfeel wise, it's smooth overall. There's no biting astringency, but you can definitely feel the hops, kind of the polyphenol, and a little bit of kind of a resiny feel as if it's like dry hopped. But yeah, just a hint of a bite also from the darkest malts. I wouldn't call it astringent. It's also not a creamy beer at all. And there's no obvious alcohol warmth here. It seems kind of middle of the road strength wise for IPA. A nice place to be. It's got some alcohol, 6.5-ish, I would guess, but I won't guess. Overall impression of very pleasant drinking black IPA with some nice quality hop choices. I'd like to know what you put in there. The darkest malts shine through, just a bit heavy in the flavor. The color is plenty dark, so you can actually adjust these downward and not lose the color. You can also play around with the way that you're adding them. I'd like to know how you added the darkest malts, if you're using Carafa or what you're doing, if you put it in the mash the whole time, or if you just sparged through it, or if you just dipped it in a bag in your boil, whatever you did. There's a lot of different ways you can try to get the color without getting all that flavor. Just add them later in the mash. Sometimes there's little tricks, but sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But sometimes you can just start low too in the mash and are sparging through something, and then you can always steep some more if you don't quite get to the color you want. But and also work with the water a little bit. The acidity being a little lower will extract a little more tannins. Again, it's not astringent or super biting, but it's kind of a fine point. But it's definitely a little leaning towards the acidic side with everything that's going on here. And so I gave it a 37. I thought it was a very high end, a very good beer. It just could use a little touch of fine tuning. I don't really get any flaws. So maybe I should have gone a little higher, but I want to see what Brian thought about it. We didn't even discuss this one before we
maybe I should have
live here.
Maybe I should have gone a little bit higher, but I'm not going to fix it now. It's fine. Who cares?
Okay.
Brian Shaw.
So this is how you can. This is how you can tell we're both, awesome, grandmaster level judges. Is we both landed right about the same score without having to talk about it or calibrate, because we're just that good, right?
That's
Brian?
right.
Oh, Brian even turned off his video for that. Oh, wow.
Brian left.
It's interesting, Justin, when you mentioned Back in Black, because I was never a big fan of Black IPA overall, but I always really liked Back in Black. And I was drinking this thinking, man, this tastes like Back in Black, which is kind of your inspiration here. So, and I could definitely tell. The aroma, inviting, perfumey aroma with an earthy, minty Northern brewer kind of character to me. Hop aromas at a medium to high level. There's some hints of piney, resinous hop aroma also. Get a low dark / chocolate malt note also. No off aromas. Very harmonious. That to me is always the most difficult part of a black IPA, is making everything work together, because so many hops don't play well with dark malt, and especially the C hops, right? When black IPA first became in vogue, all the C hops, right? The Centennial, Citrus, Cascade, Citra, Columbus in particular, none of those to me really work that well with dark malt, and people were shoveling all kinds of C hops into Black IPA, and it just didn't work. But I'll be definitely curious about your hop choices, because your hop, both the flavor and the aroma, really is harmonious with the dark malts you use. So 10 out of 12 for aroma. Appearance, 2 out of 3. Very dark brown / black. Very clear as far as is possible to tell. I knocked it off for a point just because the head is very low and not terribly persistent. It's a minor point, just 1 point, but that's the reason for that score. Flavor, initially the flavor is dark malt and chocolate, kind of a medium level. I don't get really a lot of roast or toast character, which roast character really is, I think, generally inappropriate for a Black IPA. So it should be more of a chocolatey character to the dark malt, in my view, and that's kind of the direction that I think this beer went. There's some earthy / piney hop flavor that comes up in mid-palate to medium-high level, as does the bitterness. Finish is long and balanced. It's well attenuated, 15 out of 20. Mouthfeel, 4 out of 5. Body is medium. There's some warming, neither creamy nor astringent. It was a little lower in carbonation than I would have liked for an IPA, but it's a minor ding, and that's the reason for the 4 out of 5. Overall impression, 8 for a total score of 39, which is excellent. Like I said, I really don't care for Black IPA, but I really like this one, and it makes me wish that I could get the commercial, the Back in Black back on the shelves again, because I might go out and buy some, and I probably should have bought more of it while it was available.
You're the reason that's not out anymore.
Yeah, that's nice. That's exactly right.
Yeah, you miss a beer and you can get into the neighborhood and almost have someone mistake it for the actual beer. That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it tastes a lot like I remember Back in Black as well, to it, that kind of piney, and Black IPAs are not supposed to have all that roast, and you guys covered it. I don't need to beat it up, but Back in Black to me did have a little bit of that more roasty edge than I think was to style, I guess. So if you're copying that, it's not out of that realm. For me, I think it maybe needs a little more malt character or whatever, and a little more hop flavor. But it tastes. You're like 90% there. That's very good. Yeah.
Yeah. All I might do, and as it warms up here, kind of having another sip after it's come up to a lot closer to room temperature, it's still really good. And I get just a little bit of roast character, but it's not overwhelming, and it certainly doesn't put it into like some different like American stout territory or anything like that. All I would do with this beer is increase the carbonation a little. And in the last segment, we were talking the same thing. If this is from a keg, bottled from a keg, that's one of the hardest things to do when you're kegging, is to get beer into a bottle and have it have the carbonation you want. But to me, that's about the only thing I'd really change in this beer is the carbonation.
Yeah. Well, adding a carbonation is also going to increase the acidity. So you might want to think about that in tandem, because, carbonic acid is CO2 in suspension. You're going to make it a little more biting too. So maybe playing with the other chemistry of it too. And, possibly drawing back the dark malts a bit. JP, what other malts would you add? You said maltiness.
Yeah, I said body, and I didn't mean it because I just took a sip from the bottle, and I was literally just playing that over in my mind, because that's what I do, is I play my errors over and over again. But I was like, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it needs more body. I think you do need to back off on the roast malt a little bit, but I think maybe it's the hop flavor that I'm thinking of. I think it needs more of that piney. I'm trying to like place that beer. I've only had it a couple of times, and that was a couple of years ago. So I probably shouldn't even really talk on it. But it is a little bitey with the roast malt. But I also feel like it's
they can have a little bit of caramel in there, or a little bit of You probably wouldn't want to put toastiness in here, but like maybe a dark caramel malt of some kind.
Yeah, I mean, also look. If we're talking like comparing this to commercial, versions of this beer, I've had stout level, tartness and shit from, not tartness, but acidity from dark malts from black IPAs.
It does almost
like,
get tart though sometimes, like a tanginess to it.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
So, but anyway, let's hear from Justin. What is your recipe on this, dude?
Thanks, guys. I'm happy with that score, given it's my first black IPA.
Good.
It was based on a Back in Black clone recipe from BYO a few years ago. The malt bill was 11 pounds of 2-row, 1.25 pounds of Munich malt. The recipe called for light Munich. I didn't have any, so it was a slightly darker Munich that I had. But there's not much between a light and a dark Munich really in the grand scheme of things. Cara Munich, 12 ounces of Cara Munich 2. Carafa Special 12 ounces, and that was it. It was mashed in at 148. I kept it at 148 for 60 minutes. Then I did not do a step mash. I normally do a step mash. I didn't in this case. I don't know why. And I'll get to that a little later because I think I was a bit rushed that day.
Okay.
Which is one big process change that I really changed later on, which I'd be interested to know if you think this had an impact. Onto the boil, the hops were Columbus at 60 minutes an ounce, Centennial 2 ounces at flame out, and some Columbus 1.25 ounce at flame out. So there was no Northern Brewer. It was a lot of sea hops going into it.
I totally have to reevaluate my position on sea hops and black IPA then, because though I remember back in the day that seemed to be an issue, but no, these maybe Columbus is the one that works.
I feel like they're the only ones that can. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think the sea hops
Nugget works.
Yeah.
But when I was first brewing in the early 2000s, it was like I loved hops, but I also wanted to make a stout. And I was like, well, what would happen if you took a stout and just added a bunch of hops to it? Because I had no idea what that would taste like. I'd never tasted anyone beer doing that. So I added a bunch of sea hops to a stout, and it was terrible, of course, but it was just weird. But I think maybe the roastiness, a rich roastiness combined with sea hops won't work. But in this case, there's not a lot of roastiness here. But I would say you put 12 ounces of the Carafa Special in there. That seems high, and it may be just because that's what leaning towards this recipe as it is a little bit richer on that side. But you might start with and you put it all in the mash. I assume just like leave it out of the mash, sparge through it or steep it, and use half of it at first and just see if you get the color you want. Maybe taste the wort and see if it gets you there. Because like the less of that you can have in this beer, honestly, for me, the more it's going to be better a black IPA. Because I really just want the hops to shine through. I want a little bit of that dark malt character, and then but it's really nice. Yeah, I could easily match if we were discussing this in a competition. Brian and I probably just match each other's 39. I'd say it could. It's a really nice beer.
I thought of that when I first tried it, and I really wanted to do something different with the darker malts, and so I just did an Irish stout where I didn't put the darker malts in the mash. I put it in like the last 15 minutes of the mash. Mm-hmm. It didn't work out as well because it turned out to be a really low ABV stout, but the flavor is great. So I think I'm going to do that more often of later in the mash, put the darker malts in. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, Brian was talking about putting a bunch of sea hops in a stout, and thinking back to where I came to my bias against sea hops in dark beer, that's exactly the same thing, too, as I'm thinking, all right, here's like a chocolatey flavor, and here's more like a citrus orange, and chocolate and oranges. That's a good combination. I'm going to dump a bunch of these citrusy hops into my stout, and I think Cooper's exactly right, that it's the roast that maybe doesn't work with that more so than dark malt in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was being brilliant. I'm like, boy, nobody's ever thought of trying this before. I'm like, no, they just don't do it because it doesn't freaking work. Okay.
Yeah, that's very weird. Nobody's ever thought about doing anything in homebrewing at all.
Sometimes being a pioneer doesn't mean you're a pioneer. It means you're doing the same stupid thing that 10,000 other people have tried before, and they don't do it for a reason.
Yeah, they didn't tell you about it because it's embarrassing. It didn't work. You bet your balls that if it worked, people would know about it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Hazy IPAs popped up a few years ago.
Yeah, well,
who would have thought that would work?
Never me. Justin, do you have any questions for the boys, or did they pretty much cover it?
So one thing I did different, which I'd be interested to get your feedback on, is at Flame Out, I then, rather than chill it down with, I've got a counterflow chiller. I didn't do it, and I didn't make notes as to why I didn't. I think I had something to do that day, and I ran out. So I took my, I've got a Robo Brew, and so I just took the thermal jacket off and just let it come down to temperature normally, which from what I see in Australia, home brewing scenes is a very common thing to do.
I was going to say, yeah.
but not so common here. But I did it out of necessity, and I wonder if that influenced anything.
Doesn't seem to have harmed it in any way.
Yeah, I mean the danger there is just that you lower the beer and it has a longer time at that window to get any sort of bugs inside to take hold before your yeast. But I mean, nothing happened.
Or it's traveling through the temperature range where the SMMS converts into DMS, but I'm not getting any DMS here either. So
yeah, I mean, maybe longer contact time with the hops. Maybe it's some of that bitterness.
If it was a Pils malt heavy beer, then maybe you'd have a problem. But no Pils malt in this one.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if it's essentially closed the whole time, and obviously not sterilizably sealed, that level of sealing. But if it's closed, I mean, you've sterilized the interior by boiling, and presuming there aren't any major gaps that air can bring microbes in. Yeah, I mean, I'm not tasting any kind of infection or anything else. I mean, it's not probably even a safer process than that Australian method of putting it in the cube at 212 and then sealing it and leaving it overnight, because at least then you're transferring and you might pick up something that might survive, because your temperature's starting to go down. And if you're not transferring at all, I mean, it should be a pretty safe process. Just don't leave it there for a week.
Yeah. No, but thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. I'm pretty happy with that for my first attempt. So hopefully I can do better next time.
I think
we're pretty happy drinking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've thought about trying that no chill method. I never have, but maybe now I will sometime. That's hey, I just got to go somewhere. I'm just going to let it chill.
Just got to go somewhere.
It saves water, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, Justin. Well, we'll let you go, man, if that's it. Unless you have anything else.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, dude. Bye, man. All right, we're going to take a quick break here and come back and wrap things up here on Dr. Homebrew. Hang on. We'll be right back.
Hello, fellow BNers. This is Sully from the 21st Amendment Brewery located in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park. Before Nico and I opened the 21A and before I was a professional brewer, I homebrewed on my small 4-burner apartment stove in a back house in Santa Monica, California, making my extract brews before graduating to the daunting idea of all-grain brewing. Homebrew books and information was hard to come by back then. The internet hadn't been invented yet, along with other things we take for granted today, like electricity and potable water. One thing I wish I had back then when I was learning was a radio show that could teach me the ins and outs of brewing and answer questions that I had about homebrewing, a resource for making great craft beer. The 21st Amendment Brewery is excited to be a proud sponsor of Dr. Homebrew, a great show that teaches you what you need to know about making incredible beer. Good stuff. Listen up, you might learn something. I certainly did. And thanks for your support. Tasty Crack Kings.
The leader in affordable, high-quality kegerators is here. Introducing Komos, the kegerator designed with serious beer drinkers in mind. It features an all-stainless steel draft tower, a major upgrade over traditional chrome-plated brass towers, and Komos keeps your new tower cold with their air-cooled tower fan, wrapping your beer lines in frigid coolness. Your beer is poured from innovative forward-sealing faucets that don't leak, so they stay cleaner for longer. Dual gas inlets on the rear of the fridge allow you to run both CO2 and nitrogen gas. Serve your beer with CO2, serve your kegged wine, or even cocktails with nitrogen. The digital temperature display has the largest range available, allowing you to use the Komos Kegerator for fermentation if you need to. And now Komos Kegerators ship with Duo-Tight draft fittings for that click-to-connect assembly we've all dreamed of. Buy direct from KomosDraft.com and receive free shipping on your order. That's KOMOS Draft.com.
Ma'am, I'll need to to take your top off for this examination.
Oh, doctor.
All right, we're about to end the show here, everybody. So real quick, thanks to Justin and the third Brian for sending in beers, and Justin to delivering beers. We really appreciate that. If you guys want to be on this show, and I don't know why you wouldn't, email Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com. Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com, and he will get you sorted out, get all the details over to you, and, like that. And you can be on this show.
Yeah, if Brian S got he'd have to have an S, or he'd have to spell his name differently, not with that I like mine. He'd have to change his name maybe to get a.
Well, there's no possible way to ever. Brian. There's only one possible way to spell Brian, and it's with an I. Yeah. I'm not going to change it to an incorrect manner. No, I would be maybe number 2.
No, maybe with like a
.com.
Like OUGH, like some sort of weird Irish Gaelic like Brogan.
Yeah.
We could do that at thebrewingnetwork.com. I guarantee you would get tons of email because everyone would spell that right.
But yeah, please do
Brian with 2 N's, a silent second N.
Oh, we could definitely do that.
Rihanna. Yeah.
Oh no, let's not go there.
You're not going to change over.
Yeah. Not just yet.
Okay.
All right. Well, there you go. Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com. We need your beers. We'll take mead, cider, wine, kombucha, hard seltzer. I want to do a hard seltzer on this show.
I want a sake. Give me a sake.
Kvass. Sake. Kvass. Okay, I don't even know what that is. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Like I said, we really appreciate it. And until next time, be safe, be kind to each other, and wear a mask, please. Thank you.